The only way that I can bring it to you is to school you lesson by lesson. The only way that I can bring it to you is to school you lesson by lesson.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the second segment, ShakeBack Sports Show, right here on the Big Game Christian Sports Network. It's your boy, Willie Epting Jr. Hold it down, rolling solo, man. Just in case you missed it in the first segment, I'm going to finish it up here in just a minute. Ketanji, she is the newest Supreme Court justice. And look, the disrespect is real in some aspects, really in a lot of aspects. Thank you guys out there for checking us out on Facebook Live as well as YouTube and Twitter through the ShakeBack Media Group Facebook page, YouTube, and Twitter feeds. Make sure you hit the subscribe as well as the bell to be alerted of all new content. Make sure you give us a follow as well on the ShakeBack Media Group Twitter feed. To the dopest engineer in the game, Big Day. Appreciate you throwing that double R with the loonies in there for your boy. You know I got to represent the East Bay, man. That's what that is. Sports fans all over the planet, you already know what's going down. Sports all over the landscape of the country. All four major sports are in play at this particular time. No pun intended. All right, man. Before we move on further in the second segment, it is being brought to you by Zumio. If you deal with chronic inflammation, allergies, high glucose, lack of energy, and a growing list of other health issues, well, it's time to get serious about enhancing the quality of your life with premium products from Zumio. Don't confuse this with vitamin water because this water is hydrogenated with powerful antioxidants to help reduce inflammation and so much more at a cellular level. So it is high time to protect and improve your health by placing your order today by calling 214-505-9951. Once again, that's 214-505-9951. Tell them that your boy from the ShakeBack Media Group, the ShakeBack Sports Show, Willie Epting Jr., and of course, the BGC Sports Network told you to holler at them so y'all can set it off on getting your financial or your health needs in order. Okay, so let me finish up real quick before we move on to the NBA or the NFL or whatever I'm going to talk about next. Yeah, Ketanji, look, the disrespect was real. And I actually finished the first question by asking a series of questions. And that's why it was so fitting that Double R and the Loonies came in right there at the beginning of this segment, because there are a lot of questions. And just let me say this for people who out there who have continued to create the narrative or continue the narrative that, well, why is Joe Biden basing this position on solely on race, when obviously that is not the case. If you would look at the landscape as to what's going on, that is not what happened. He just happened to pick a person that was African American and is a woman, but also has everything in the tool shed to do that particular job. So, and when that question and that narrative continues, this is basically what happens to me. This is what I read from it. How could they do that? How could they appoint somebody solely on their color? That's what I hear when I hear that narrative continuing. And my answer to you guys is this. It's the same way that minorities, whether you are African American male, female, whether you are a woman, when you are a minority, when you have been a minority and lived in the shoes of a minority, you would understand that those things have happened to us our entire lives. It's happened to me on a personal level. So when I hear and see that, I'm really, really disgusted because the people that are pushing that don't really have a clue. I have been passed over for jobs that I was qualified for, more qualified for than the person that actually got it. I have been passed over for jobs, man, that I actually helped train a person when they got to the company and they got a position that we both applied for, and I was more qualified. I have applied and actually been assured of positions in corporate America where I was heard. I heard through the grapevine that you're going to, hey, congratulations, I understand you're going to be the next this, only to be swooped in by somebody that referred me to the position who was doing a different job and decided that they wanted that job back and went in behind the back door and stole the job from me. Now, all those things have happened to me. And I can tell you this one thing right now. That did not happen by any other person or any other race of the person that's a lighter shade than I am. Translation, that person was white. Translation, the person that made those decisions, those final decisions on those personnel issues were white. So that is what I hear. And that is what I feel when I see people, when I hear people talking about, well, I can't believe that they're just choosing her based on the fact that she's black and she's a woman. No, that's not what it is. And stop doing that, because all you're doing is closing your eyes. You're burying your head in the sand. And now you don't want to have the conversations that we have been wanting to have for the longest time. So, congratulations again to Justice Jackson. Congratulations to her. She so richly deserves it. And look, we are behind you 100%. Now, if you commit the crime and you face her, you're going to do the crime or you're going to do the time. But just don't do the crime. And you won't even have to ever see her, just on TV like we all have to. Okay, let's move to the National Football League, because we're a few weeks away from the draft. I think I want to say less than 2 weeks, actually a little bit more than 2 weeks away from the draft. And this draft to me is not sexy at all. I mean, the wide receivers are deep. There's no mistake about that. And here's something that I think that is very interesting to discuss when we talk about wide receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs. You know, there was a time when the running back position was so premium, was such a valued asset, that people were clamoring to take a running back, you know, at least in the first round. Well, you're not seeing that anywhere like that, like we used to see it. And that's because you can get running backs anywhere. Seemingly, it seems like you can get running backs anywhere. Okay. But the thing is that the NFL and Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, he just needs to shut up. He just needs to shut up, because everybody knows that when you have the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, these are the young quarterbacks. I'm not talking about the OGs. I'm talking about the young quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson to a degree, Mac Jones, and the kid in New York. Okay, Tua Tagovailoa, him down in Miami, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. When you have those guys at these ages, I think most of them, if not all of them, are 25 and younger, with the exception of Wilson. But when you have these guys that are carrying the torch into the next generation of football and how we view it and see it and cheer for it as fans, you're not going to need the running back per se like you did when Eric Dickerson was toting the pill. Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Frank Gore, Frank Gore, by the way, did you guys know that Frank Gore is the third leading rusher of all time in the National Football League? Yeah, that Frank Gore. And he is not mentioned with being amongst one of the greats, which longevity has something to do with that. But I digress. So what I'm saying is basically is that Mike McCarthy said that it is hard to be a passing league or a passing team in this NFL. This dude showed why he was fired from Green Bay. This dude showed why he was considered to be not that great of a candidate when it comes to how the game is played now, the things that go along with preparation. He has proven that he's not that guy. So running backs have actually, to me, been displaced by the wide receivers. And the reason why that is, and also tight ends that are athletic, such as Kyle Pitts, Rob Gronkowski, and a couple of kids that are coming out in the college ranks this year. Of course, you have Noah Fant now in Seattle. Okay. When you have tight ends and receivers like Tyreek Hill that can run all routes. I mean, he is the fastest dude in the NFL, no doubt about it. But he ain't just a 9-route runner. You know what I'm saying? He's just not a slant and go person. He can run every route in the tree. And then when you couple that with his speed and his quickness, and even as small as he is, his ability to evade big hits, that is what teams are trying to duplicate, or at least come close to duplicating it. And yeah, there's not a Tyreek Hill out there every other draft or every 5 years of a draft. We understand that. And Tyreek Hill was not a a first round draft pick. I think Tyreek Hill was chosen in the third or fourth round. Devontae Adams, welcome to Las Vegas. Welcome to #Raider Nation. He was chosen in the second round by the Packers. Now he's one of the top 4 wide receivers in the NFL. The reason why Green Bay, yeah, they may win the division in the NFC North, but it's only because the NFC North is that bad. As a matter of fact, you stack the two divisions beside each other, the NFC East and the NFC North. Which one is worse? Which one is worse? I'm going to put that on the poll. Which NFC division is worse? The NFC North or the NFC East? So, excuse me. So when you talk about this being a difficult league to remain a passing team in, it's ridiculous. Think about the art and the skill of being a receiver, okay? I think there are a minimum of 4 things that you have to be a more than serviceable receiver in the National Football League. You got to have hands. You have to be able to run at least 75% of the routes in the tree. You have to be able to get separation. And you have to be able to make big plays after the catch. You have to be able to do those 4 things, at least those 4 things, in order to be on a team and actually be contributing to that team. So we know that the top receivers in the NFL, they definitely have that. They definitely have that. So people, particularly in Kansas City, when Tyreek Hill gets traded from the Chiefs to the Dolphins, and somebody said Tyreek Hill is going from a Lamborghini off the showroom floor in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes to a used 2010 or 2000 Honda Civic with Tua Tagovailoa. That's harsh. It may be real, but it is very harsh. And you know what? I can't help for it to think that it's not accurate. Think about the limitations that Tua has shown us. Think about that. Think about the prowess that Patrick Mahomes has displayed and shown us as being a potential great, all-time great, the all-time great that this league has ever seen. All that's there with that young man. All of it's there. So what do the Chiefs do? They set themselves up to at least be able to get some more bodies in their wide receiver room. Of course, they signed Juju Smith-Schuster in free agency from the Steelers. Okay, that's a big deal. They still have McCole Hardman. Of course, they still have Travis Kelce. Even though he's not in the wide receiver room, you got to think that he's in there with those in meetings with those guys, the passing team or whatever you want to call it. So you also have Josh Gordon, who they decided to hold on to. Now, what that tells me about Josh Gordon is that he has gotten at least to a point back in his career where the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy all believe that there's something that he can bring to the table. You got to think that. Otherwise, why would they have done it? Okay. But now they have two high draft choices in a draft that is thick with wide receivers. I mean, just thick. Penn State, Ohio State. Ohio State has 2 receivers on the same team. And then it makes me think, how in the world is it that these schools with all these NFL players on it, how come they can't win the national championship? It reminds me of basketball, college basketball, that we're also going to get to in the third segment, because congratulations to Kansas, although I don't really care for them. So we're going to get to that in the third segment. But back to the NFL. Okay. These receivers coming out of college, the Garrett Wilsons, the Chris Olaves, the Dotson kid out of Penn State, the kid coming from Arkansas, the kid coming from USC. Never has it been a time in the history of the NFL where receivers can come in and make more of an immediate impact than they ever have in the history of the game. And there's been, of course, a lot of great receivers that have been drafted. The last receiver that was drafted number 1 overall, I think it was Keyshawn Johnson. And that was in, 97 or 98, somewhere in there. It just doesn't happen. But that doesn't mean that there's not value, because we've seen Antonio Browns of the world, 6th-round draft choices, and he stays hungry because he's got that chip on his shoulder. But then again, we've seen some busts that went in the top 10 at wide receiver. Justin Blackmon from Oklahoma State comes to mind. Carlos Rogers from Michigan State, when he went to Detroit, comes to mind. So, and then there's others as well. You talk about Laquan Treadwell, who was drafted in the 1st round. He may not have been a top 10 pick, but he was drafted in that 1st round, and he was expected to do big things, and he never measured up. He never really measured up. So, to me, for Mike McCarthy to make a statement like that, who knows what he's attempting to do, because of their bungling of the whole Ezekiel Elliott and his holdout from a few years ago when they decided to give him $90 million. I forgot how much of it was guaranteed, but when they gave him $90 million, I have no inkling to think or believe that when they did that, they were thinking about 2022. There's no possible way they were thinking about 2022, because they've had to cut. And I could ask the question, who would you have rather cut, Zeke Elliott or Amari Cooper? I would say Zeke, easy, because Pat Pollard, rest in peace, Pat. Tony Pollard is behind Zeke Elliott, and he can do everything that Zeke can do, maybe even a little bit better, because he's a little bit shiftier. He's a little bit faster. Now, he's not as big as Zeke. He may not be able to take as much of a pounding, but he knows what needs to be done in order to not get hit violently. And to be honest, he's more of a game breaker than Zeke is at this point in Zeke's career. I think that 3rd year for Zeke, we saw him going down at that point. And then the suspension, when he was suspended for violating the NFL's conduct policy or whatever it is, I think that had a big play in the decreased amount of effectiveness that Ezekiel Elliott was able to bring to the table. So now you have a team in Dallas that is really kind of squandering. What are they going to do with their offensive line? It's in a shambles. CeeDee Lamb, are you going to be the number 1 wide receiver? We'll see. All right, that's going to do it for the 2nd segment. Thank y'all for checking us out on Facebook Live as well as YouTube and Twitter. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. We're going to get up out of here for the 2nd segment. Come back on the other side. We're going to get into some NBA. Dopest engineer in the game, big day. Sports fans all over the planet. Willie F. T. Jr., ShakeBack Sports Show. Y'all coming back and holler at us.